Hello, welcome back to my series of videos where I spin the scroll wheel on my mouse and I let it pick what movie I'm going to watch on the Criterion Channel, and then I watch it and talk about it. Let's see what I get this time. Dillinger is Dead, Marco Ferreri, 1969. I'm pumped. Let's go watch it. If it fits! Okay, there will be spoilers. Dillinger is Dead is a 1969 film directed by Marco Ferreri. I'm gonna say all these names wrong. I apologize in advance. Marco Ferreri, and starring Michel Piccoli, Anita Pallenberg, and Annie Girardot. And it tells the story of Glauco, a middle-aged designer of gas masks. After getting home from work one night, we follow Glauco as he makes himself dinner, watches home movies, speaks with his wife who's in bed with a headache, seduces his maid, and finds what could be John Dillinger's gun wrapped in a newspaper in his closet, which he proceeds to clean, paint, reenact taking his own life a few times, before eventually shooting his wife and getting a job as a cook on a ship bound for Tahiti. Pretty standard night. This is a film where nothing really happens plot-wise in the traditional sense, and while I was watching, I couldn't help thinking of the 1975 Chantal Akerman film Jeanne Dielman, which takes place over the course of 3 days and follows Jeanne Dielman as she does monotonous housework and also sex work. In that film, the monotony is part of the point. It makes you experience what Jeanne does, and by focusing on the mundane, it makes small deviations that much more pronounced and dramatic. Dillinger is Dead could be described as the masculine version of Jeanne Dielman, dealing with a modern, for the time, man's struggle with isolation and alienation and a feeling of a loss of his masculine identity. Glauco, finding the gun, a symbol people use to this day to represent masculine virility, wrapped in a newspaper stating Dillinger is dead. John Dillinger was an American tough guy outlaw who, and I'm not sure when these rumors started, so it may have no bearing on when the film was made. John Dillinger allegedly had an extremely large pistol, which was subsequently removed after his death and stored in a jar at the Smithsonian. Smithsonian. Stored in a jar at the Smithsonian. Which I only think adds layers to the subtext of the film and its themes of masculinity or the loss of masculinity. So if we look at the gun that way, Glauco spends the rest of the film trying to fix and restore the gun, his masculinity, to the point where it becomes absurd when he paints it red with polka dots, ultimately using it to force the housekeeper into an intimate relationship and eventually to murder his wife. The film has been labeled misogynistic, and I can understand that point of view, and while I think that it is sympathetic towards Glauco's feelings of feminization, for lack of a better word, I think ultimately the film is almost mocking him. I ended up viewing him as a fairly weak and silly character, kind of pathetic in his desperate attempts to regain his masculinity. I don't think that the film in any way celebrates his murdering of his wife, and the final moments of the film, to me, although I have seen it interpreted in different ways, was a tragic descent rather than an escape. I do think that the film strips away most of the reasoning and logic, and so it leaves the film up to interpretation, I think intentionally. And so maybe it's just a matter of the eye of the beholder. The viewer is going to see what they put on it rather than what the film is really saying. Dillinger is Dead is worth a watch. Many people will find it boring, and I would have to agree. These kinds of films, like Jeanne Dielman, are more fun to talk about than they are to sit through for me. I like them as an exercise rather than as entertainment. But now, if you want to exercise your finger-clicking skills, you can watch my video on Ingmar Bergman's The Passion of Anna. Anna, Ferreri, Michel, Smithsonian. Words are hard for me, I'm sorry.